Your local Caucasian Asian media expert is back at it again. And today I want to talk about heated rivalry, real life versus fantasy, and branded pairs. In case you're not already in the know, branded pairs are exactly what they say on the tin. A pair of actors that are sold as a package deal so that their names and their couple is a brand in and of itself. It is most common in Thailand, at least in the rigid format it exists in currently. Basically, if a couple is cast in a show together and it works, the industry wants to get as much revenue and engagement out of that as possible before they let the actors break off to do other things. Because when people love a pairing together, they are inherently more likely to buy into a new show just because those guys are there. You know how people used to go to the cinema just because your specific favorite famous people were there and their names were a big enough draw on their own? It's like that, but as a couple. And usually gay as hell. In Thailand, things are kind of run on the star system favoured during the golden age of Hollywood, where major studios essentially owned actors' entire career and public image, which isn't ideal, but it is easier to break contracts nowadays than it was back then. Plus, renegotiations are fairly common in the industry, so at least there's that. Don't worry, we will get to it. And when I say branded pairs, I do mean they are brands. They have symbols to represent them. The GMMTV ones also have mascots. They do concerts framed around their pairing, they tour and do meet and greets, and they exclusively sign on for shows where they're the lead roles as a duo. And I have very complicated feelings about it. So let me take this opportunity to break down the pros and cons.
Trust me, gay is in, gay is hot. I want some gay it's gonna be. Nandor?
Pros. Couples who don't need chemistry reads because we know they've got it. This is a severely underrated plus when it comes to branded pairs, because I watch a lot of romance shows and films, and it is baffling just how little people seem to rely on chemistry reads outside of Asia anymore. I watched Simone Ashley's rom-com Picture This, which in itself is a remake of an Australian Asian film, and it was a hard watch, because while Simone is bringing it, as usual, she has almost negative chemistry with her co-star.
Why are you here?
Wanted to see you.
Why?
What do you think?
You tell me, I'm asking.
I still think about you, Peel.
And I do think that's his fault, because it's this guy.
Hey, hon, good to see you. How you been? Fucking Trevor!
And it's not like she's incapable, because her and Jonathan Bailey scorched everybody's tits off in their season of Bridgerton. Yeah, I'm gonna keep that wording. Chemistry isn't just a matter of being able to act, it's an extra, intangible thing that casting directors have to take into account, and they've been massively dropping the ball for at least 10 years now. That's part of why James Gunn choosing to do it for Superman was such a big deal, and part of why that pairing fucking works.
The first time I met David was at our chemistry read.
We met at like 2 o'clock in the afternoon.
We came to Los Angeles to read for Superman and Lois, and we read together once, and neither one of us really remember it.
So we sort of stumbled through it, and then James said, great, that's it. Bye, Rachel. Bye, David.
We'll occasionally get a really good pairing because somebody cares about making it authentic, a la heated rivalry, but most of the mainstream movies and TV shows are relying on you thinking the actors are hot more than believing their chemistry. And hey, when they're good enough actors underneath said X Factor, you really don't think about the fact that it's the same guys while you're watching it, because, you know, acting. But it does serve as an endorsement before you watch it, because there's a baseline level of talent and involvement there. It doesn't mean that every show the pairing does is going to work for you, because there are other factors like writing and directing and even just your personal taste in media. But it's generally a good baseline to work from. Like, I'll watch Jung Dunk and First Cow in pretty much anything. I mean, I could watch Jung Arch and watch paint dry, and you may quote me on that. And the vibes he has with Dunk are always immaculate.
มึงไม่ชอบกูบ้างเลยเหรอวะกูไม่ชอบมึงก็ต้องชอบกูสักนิดเหรอวะได้ถ้ามึงอยากได้กูเดี๋ยวกูจัดให้สไตล์หรอเชื่อใครวะกูจะไปรู้ไหมมันจะมาฆ่ามึงหรือฆ่ากูอะให้กูไปถามมันปะล่ะสไตล์ ไม่เป็นไรมึงแค่กระสุนเฉียวเองมึงจะปล่อยดีอีกเนาะ
First Cow's most recent show wasn't my favourite, and their upcoming show doesn't seem like it's going to be something I'm obsessed with, but I'll still watch it, because I know that at a bare minimum, I'll get a fantastic, believable performance.
รักคุณนะเพื่อนผมที่เป็นผมจะไม่โกหกผมจริงคุณจะไม่หลอกผมเลยใช่ไหมขอโทษนะผม
Same goes for Earth Mix, William Est, Kengnam Ping, Milk Love, Yin War, and a host of other phenomenal pairings. I even watched Thailand's terrible Osan's Love adaptation for Earth Mix, which was rough for everybody involved. Seriously, Earth Mix, I love you. You didn't deserve that script. I'm sorry. But don't worry, they're back in Only Friends Dream On right now, and they're killing it, so thank God they've got some good material again.
ถึงมึงเคยทำอาชีพเด็กเอ็นนะกูไม่ว่าอะไรเลยมึงจะบอกเลิกกูทำไมวะก็ตอนนั้นแม่งกูเสียใจไงที่แฟนตัวเองไปขอความช่วยเหลือจากคนอื่นนะแทนที่จะพึ่งพากูเป็นคนแรกทำไมวะดีนกูว่าดูแลคนอื่นได้นะเว้ยกูก็ไม่อยากเป็นภาระคนอื่นด้วย
It's also always fun to see if you like a new pairing when they're created. I wasn't the biggest fan of Only Boo as a show, but Sea Keen absolutely blew me away in head-to-head.
นี่มึงไม่ได้แอบใส่ยาพิษลงไปในนี้ใช่ไหมเนี่ยเปล่ากูใช้นิ้วตีนคุกสัก 2-3 ทีมึงนี่มันเหี้ยจริงๆเลย
And I'm really excited for their next show. Tempo wasn't my favourite show from 2024, but even despite that, I was so taken with William S. that their side couple in Me and T had me hooked, and their upcoming 2026 show cannot get here fast enough. I am frothing at the mouth. Was that too much?
ฮัลโหลเฮ้ยฮัลโหลไอ้มอสไอ้ปันยังคู่กูแล้วว่ะฮะมึงไม่ต้องฝืนใจเด็กกับไอ้ดีเลยก็ได้นะอ๋อโอเคโหลว่าไอ้ดินกูจีบปันติดแล้วนะเว้ยมึงไม่ต้องคุยกับไอ้มอสแล้วก็ได้นะต่อปะ
Give it to me! I'm excited to find new pairings that I love. And on the flip side, if I don't like a pairing together for whatever reason, whether they don't have believable chemistry or I don't enjoy their acting, it's an easy way to avoid watching something I probably won't enjoy. I have loved Ja and Tae in other things, but I didn't like them together and the love never sets. Part of that is that the show was, bad. But it was also because they just didn't fit together, in my opinion.
คู่อื่นเขาก็จบกันแฮปปี้เอนดิ้งหมดแล้วเหลือแต่พวกเรานั่นแหละเอาไงต่อดีอะกูว่าแฮปปี้เดียว
I will watch things that they do separately in the future, but if they end up as a branded couple, which seems highly unlikely given the reception to the series, cannot stress enough that it was bad, I'll know to steer clear of future projects. Same goes for the boys in Peach Lover, which I find utterly devoid of charm and sensuality, despite being about chemistry in sex work.
ตรงนี้เป็นที่นั่งฮันนีมูนซีทครับ
งั้นเราเอาตรงนี้เพราะว่าผมอยากฮันนีมูนกับแฟน
คุณไปพูดอย่างนี้ได้ไงครับคนอยู่ต้องเยอะแยะ
โอ้ยคุณอย่าไปกลัวเลยไม่มีใครเห็นหน้าหรอกสักปิดแมสอยู่ไหนเลย
Just go watch Playboy instead. And if you like the pairings I don't, that's not a problem. We're all different people seeking out different things. But knowing you're probably not going to vibe with something before you watch it is a good gauge to keep in your back pocket, don't you think? On top of that, for the most part, it serves as a tacit guarantee that the two actors at least get on well enough to sign up for multiple projects together, and often are actual friends, which is legitimately nice. I don't tend to get overly parasocial if I can help it, but sentimentally, I do always prefer to know that the casts of shows actually like each other behind the scenes. Call me a bleeding heart liberal if you want. Sometimes these pairings end up falling out and ending things, but often that's caused by the fans being too intrusive of their private lives, and put a pin in that because we will get to it. And sometimes their falling outs are entirely based on realizing they don't like each other as people, or having an actual friendship-ending fight. But those ones aren't our business. Cannot stress that enough. Sometimes a pairing will stop working together because they want to seek other projects, hold this pin for me, and sometimes they'll work with each other for years and through multiple shows. Some of these pairings have been working together on and off for a decade, and I, for one, think that's neat. To have a creative partner that you can always rely on is something most of us can only dream of, and I am both seething with jealousy and delighted to see it. And my personal favourite pro, they massively normalise platonic male contact, because they're often contracted to act physically close with each other at events and such, something I will be going to in the cons section in a minute. There's a wealth of footage of these men hugging, cheek kissing, groping each other, and just generally being all up in each other's business. Sure, the idea is that a large chunk of the audience will use that as shipping material, but it's also a really great way to normalize platonic male contact. If these two men, who are not dating each other, can hang off each other like that, are you telling me you can't handle hugging the homies? I have a whole video coming up about platonic intimacy, watch this space, but in the meantime, allow me to wax poetical about how much I absolutely love this. I'm sure that being employed to kiss your coworker breaks down a lot of those barriers for you organically, which are further broken down by participating in intimacy workshops, which I think should be mandatory on every romance set because it makes a world of difference. Becoming more in tune and comfortable with each other is a huge plus in life, let alone at work where you're supposed to pretend to be in love with each other, and it leads to much more naturalistic performances, as well as genuine comfortability and playfulness out of character. This is footage from one of the workshops that First Cow did way back in 2022 when they were going to work together on The Eclipse, because even though they were already friends before they started filming, being friends does not always equate to on-screen chemistry. They needed to practice bringing those emotions forth, both as actors but also as human beings who are connecting with each other, playing a role. And this is just one kind of thing that they do in these workshops. They just refer to them holistically as workshops. The intimacy workshops are one subset of that, and there's the emotional part of intimacy workshops, which is what they're clearly doing here, but there are also the physical intimacy workshops where they do a bunch of exercises where they get physically comfortable being close to each other, where they spend time touching each other platonically in ways you wouldn't necessarily normally do outside of this, especially if they're filming a show that's going to have a sex scene in. You need to be very comfortable with each other, but also very comfortable speaking up when you're uncomfortable with something, which is why intimacy coordinators are so important for sets, and why I think you should have intimacy workshops and just workshops in general on every fucking project that you work on. Jung Ah-chin is one of the most amiable, physically affectionate guys I've ever seen. He's not just excited for every kiss scene with Doug to a frankly embarrassing degree.
ลิปกับชายเพราะผมรู้สึกว่าเขาเป็นคนที่ปากสวยมากเป็นคนที่ปากสีสวยมากครับผมคือแบบปากเขาเหมาะกับการทาลิปมากนี่เห็นไหมสวยปะสีสวยมากสีสวยมากจริงๆฟันแล้วอยู่ดีก็จูบกันแล้วเมื่อกี้ไม่จูบอ่ะลอง1 2 3
Or jumping at the chance to climb all over him, he's also like that with the other guys too. A lot of these pairings work for the same companies, so they obviously have friends within them, but there are cross-company friendships too, because this is a popular industry and they often go to the same events. Jung is seemingly on a mission to normalize kissing the homies by kissing every single homie he can get his hands on. And I'm actually in love with him about it. I too want to normalize kissing the homies. Why can't I give my best friends a little cheek kiss? Or a forehead smooch, or a cheeky platonic makeout in the club? Dunk is also very playfully physically affectionate, most recently grabbing Jung by the dick and gooch at a public event in full view of hundreds of people and cameras, because he's hilarious. I'm using these two as examples because they're some of the most well-known for it, but plenty of other QL boys act like this, and it's great. When they watch the episodes of their shows together and draped over each other, or when they hold hands at events, or flirting with each other just for the sake of it, it's one small part of the incremental normalization of platonic male intimacy. And I absolutely fucking love it. More men should be manhandling the homies. I don't know why I delivered that like a JFK speech. I think more men should be manhandling the homies. Actually, to be fair, that is something JFK probably would endorse. Famously rumoured bisexual JFK. Would probably love that shit, actually. More men should be manhandling the homies. In this essay, I would... No, wait, hang on. That's a different essay. Let's get back to business and talk about the cons.
Bogus. Heinous. Most non-triumphant.
The first and most obvious con is that if two people become a branded pair, they are rarely allowed to pair up or even gesture towards pairing up with somebody else. Sometimes it gets frustrating, especially recently, where they seem reluctant to let them out of their cages for just a little bit, even if they're doing just fine, because they're trying to maintain the integrity of the brand. They used to let all these bitches kiss each other, even the ones in branded pairs, and now we're lucky if we get one cross-pair kiss every blue moon. Only Friends Dream On is currently airing, and so far, there have been no cross-pair kisses. There haven't even been kisses between a pairing with just like a random other person, let alone combining pairs. As Bisexual Jumphole pointed out on Tumblr, hi Axel, on the one hand, Only Friends Dream On is much better at having compelling characters than the first season. The school play is also a setting I find a lot more interesting than building a random business, which we barely saw them building in season 1. However, the pairing's rigidity and gender roles are so off-putting. The only reasons Only Friends 1 had to be queer is because everyone messed with everyone, even when the kisses at the end became too random. But now that only established pairings are getting kiss scenes and only tops and bottoms are paired together, I fear we have lost the quintessential essence of why Only Friends even came to be. What is the point of putting all these actors together to play messy characters if they're not all gonna make out at least once? That feels weird in a show like that, especially considering how messy the first season and pairings were. That was part of the appeal, in fact. So far, Boston hasn't even kissed somebody yet, and that feels like a crime, because Neo isn't even paired up. They just don't want him disrupting the integrity of the pairs.
Hey, Long!
People keep referring to him as like a sort of messy, evil gay Cupid, and like, yeah, but also let him kiss people. So unfair. Let my boy be gay and evil, as God intended. The next con is that if the pair is misaligned or forced into disparate circumstances, it actively hinders one half of the pair's career through no fault of their own. For example, if one member gets sick or has a death in the family, it halts the work for the other one too. Or, in more severe cases, like that of Smart Boom, who are in the massively popular show Top Form, and contracted together, when Smart broke his contract for complicated and disputed reasons that this video is decidedly not about, it has left Boom in limbo now too, unable to move forward or take other jobs until this is all resolved. Which sucks for both of them. Boom is stuck, and because they had a brand image to maintain, by breaking his contract, Smart has incurred a huge backlash from the company, which isn't good for his career either. Which brings me to my next point. Brands make things sterile and commercial. By turning two people into a brand with a TM symbol, you don't just stunt their ability to test out their chemistry with others, you also flatten them somewhat. Which is by design. You want them to have as close to universal appeal as possible, and you can't do that if they're too outside the box. But if an actor can only choose a project when accounting for somebody else's range or preferences, it massively limits the scope of what they're able to do, even if they're entering into that contract willingly. It leads to more limited projects and less investment from fans, which is unfortunate, especially when the actor individually deserves to get roles without having to tie their acting partner to themselves to do it. It pigeonholes them from branching out into different projects with other actors, especially when they're also told to keep a specific brand image on and off camera. Quickly pause the script for a second to talk about the fact that, like, even when these people make cameo appearances or play side characters in other shows, they're starting to keep their pairs together as well. Like, it was really jarring. First Cow's new show, Cat for Cash, Satang plays one of the side characters, and Winnie, who was his previous pair, they have since broken up to work on separate projects. Good for them. I talk about it briefly later. Satang is like a side character in the show, and he even has a flirtation with another character in the show. And the whole time, the audience, we know they're not going to consummate that. They're not going to do anything with that because he's contracted to Winnie. And eventually Winnie does show up briefly. And that happens so much. It never used to. But, like, it's one thing to do it in things like Moonlight Chicken at the very, very, very end as like a fun cameo. And people liked that for the most part. But now that's become the standard. There's no point in even imagining that their chemistry with another character will work its way out because they're going to allude to the fact that they'll end up with their branded pair in the end anyway. So why does anything even matter? Why would you even put them in here to act alongside somebody that's not in their branded pair when the entire audience knows that you're not going to follow through on that? It's just kind of frustrating. Now, they are getting better at managing the out-of-character stuff and letting shy actors be shy and outgoing actors be outgoing, but they've still got a ways to go in terms of allowing people to be themselves on press tours and such. And the thing is, it's not as bad as it used to be in terms of enforcing people's private lives as part of their public lives, right? Like, they no longer have to pretend to actually be dating. They just have to have a lot of plausible deniability in there. And some of these branded pairs may actually be dating. And you know what? That's none of our fucking business. But I will say, because of this emphasis to have the brand be cohesive more than to cast the right people, it is kneecapping a lot of things, not just in terms of the branded pairs that already exist, but in terms of shutting people out of creating new, interesting things. Mild, an actress popular in Thailand who we love, did an interview recently where she said,
ยังพูดกับผู้กำกับที่มายทำงานด้วยอยู่เลยว่าแบบเนี่ยถ้าเกิดว่ายังไม่ประกาศแต่งงานนี่จะเอาไปเล่นยูริแล้วนะเนี่ยก็แบบน่าสนุกดี
Mild is up for acting in a Yuri. She wants to, but because she's publicly married to a man, the company says no. And that's really frustrating. It's reductive. You're stopping actors who would be great in roles from getting new opportunities just because their public brandable image doesn't quite fit what you're trying to go for. And that's going to cause a lot more problems further down the line. And of course, the most horrendous con of all. Fans get way too invested in the actors outside of their roles, latch on to the branded pair as if they're a real couple, and get angry at them for not looking together enough. This has happened so many times I can't even count, because every single branded pair has had at least one scandal, huge air quotes on that word, related to this, and some of them ended their partnership because of fan behaviour. The most obvious example being Om Nanon, who were close friends for years before they did Bad Buddy, and then stopped acting together within the same year after it came out, because people got way too parasocial about them, and it started to taint their friendship. And sure, there might have been like an actual legitimate argument and friendship ending thing behind the scenes, but this was a major factor. They're not even close to the only ones who have been negatively affected to the point of wanting to break up the brand. They're just the most famous. Plenty of actors have spoken on not just the pressure they feel to act a certain way the moment they leave the house, but also the frustrations with the constant assumptions.
เอาจริงนะผมแอบมีความไม่สบายใจกับคอมเมนต์อันหนึ่งที่เข้ามาเขียนถึง OHM เนี่ยผมรู้สึกว่าคุณต้องให้เกียรติตัวศิลปินที่คุณรักด้วยนะการที่คุณคอมเมนต์แบบนี้มันไม่ได้สบายใจกันเลยสักฝ่ายผมรู้สึกว่าคุณควรน่ารักกับพวกเขามากกว่านี้นะครับถ้าคุณรักพวกเขานะครับยังจะพิมพ์ไม่เลิกนะไอโอมณนนท์เนี่ยเดี๋ยวก่อนนะไม่น่ารักเลยนะเอาจริงต้องการอะไรเดี๋ยวก่อนมีมารยาทสักนิดนึงนะคุณไม่ควรที่จะมาพิมพ์อะไรด้วยผมบอกให้ถ้าคุณรักน้องจริงๆไม่ว่าจะรักใครคนใดคนหนึ่งคุณควรที่จะให้เกียรติศิลปินที่คุณรักที่คุณชื่นชอบด้วยถ้าเป็นต่างชาติช่วยเอาสิ่งที่ผมพูดไปแปลแล้วบอกเขาด้วยนะครับ เราก็รักน้องของเราเราก็เลี้ยงน้องของเรามาเพราะฉะนั้นก็รบกวนให้เกียรติเขาด้วยนะครับ
A lot of them have learned to get tongue-in-cheek with it as a way of deflecting it without directly insulting the fans. Like, Pond and Fuin are quite famous for doing this, as are Jung and Dunk. But the fact that they even have to get good at that is aggravating.
Flip, fun, Ford, Ford, Ford.
Fan Ford! Why do you need the couple on screen to be dating off screen for you to enjoy a show? Does it really hinder your enjoyment of something that much to know that they're not dating? Do you not care about the value of fucking acting, my guy? Patrick Swayze and Jennifer Grey didn't get on the set of Dirty Dancing. And that doesn't diminish my love of that movie even one iota. They put clips of him being annoyed at her, like unscripted clips, into the movie. Still good. The show The X-Files literally gave birth to the term shipping because people wanted Mulder and Scully together so bad. And David and Gillian could barely stand each other half the time. And I ate that shit up. Like I said, I like the casts of movies to get along if at all possible, but I don't need them to actually be dating. The overstepping people do is so horrendous, from accusing them of cheating when they're getting too close to literally anyone else, or even something as seemingly mild as tagging the other half of their branded pair whenever they're doing things solo, which adds up and begins to grate on them after a while. Deservedly so. Which does also happen to famous actual couples, such as Shane and Courtney from Smosh, who have both taken umbrage with fans refusing to let Courtney do things on her own without bringing up her husband, which they have documented as being part of the reason why they didn't want to tell people they were dating for so long, because people would permanently tie them together publicly, particularly in a misogynistic way towards Courtney. If even the real couple is bothered by you doing this, imagine how annoying it is for co-workers to get it. This somehow inverts in a toxic way as well, because humans are insufferable. Fans desperately want the couple to be together for the sake of their precious ship, but the moment one of these actors actually comes out as gay, suddenly it's time to take them down a peg. I cannot stress enough that it's actively homophobic to only enjoy queer content when you have the plausible deniability of heterosexuality, fetishizing and fantasizing about it, and then turning on these men the moment they actually come out as queer. Just homophobia. That is all that is. Billy Babe have both separately come out as queer and do appear to possibly be dating, although I am not corroborating that, and they've both received shitty comments from people about it since coming out.
มันเป็นความจริงไงชีไม่เลิฟชีชอบความไม่จริง
ไหน where is Heather เฮ้ยมานี่เลยโอ้โหบอกอยู่เป็นเกย์โว้ยอะไรก็ไม่รู้คือทุกคนบนโลกนี้จะเป็น girlfriend หมดเลยฮะ
ต้องพูดอย่างนี้ป่ะผมต้องเกย์แค่ไหนครับถึงจะสะใจคุณ
I think somebody should give them a gun.
I will kill you to death with a gun. Like, you're not...
I'll literally murder you.
It's not fair.
This paradox has been thrust into the limelight recently with the heated rivalry cast. People shipped Hudson and Connor together, referring to them as HudCon, in a similar way to the way that Thai ships are the names smushed together. And then, when it seemed like Connor might be dating one of his other co-stars, Francois, people absolutely turned on him. It's been going on for literal months at this point. Hudson having a long-term girlfriend was also something that caused backlash, especially at the beginning, but nowhere near to the extent Connor and Francois have been receiving. I wonder why that is.
มันเป็นความจริงไงชีไม่เลิฟชีชอบความไม่จริง
It's the homophobia. And HudCon aren't even a branded pair. They've actually been very clear about their desires to take on other projects separately and not tie their careers together for life. But it is the closest the West has come to that style of semi-branded display in a while. And it caused absolute carnage because people do not know how to behave. Fans are so desperate to see these people as part of the fantasy they've constructed that they'll ignore reality and these people's autonomy, and they'll lash out at anything that doesn't fit their narrative. They feel entitled to these actors' identities, and it's super fucking gross. And as I have repeatedly said, they used to actually make these people basically pretend to be dating each other, so at least they're not doing that anymore. But they're not exactly discouraging this kind of fandom behavior, for obvious reasons. It's capitalism, it's consumerism, and the more invested and parasocial people are about these couples, in huge air quotes, the more money they will spend on fan cons and merch and the shows themselves. I understand from a purely capitalistic mindset why they do this. That doesn't make it less shitty. And as one of my Tumblr mutuals, Respect the Petty, pointed out, GMMTV as a company has made 3 series about the negatives of BL shipping, calling out the fandom in some way. And every single time they're a little bit light on it. There's always some level of like, oh, well, we can't be too mean to the fans because then they'll stop spending money on us. As Petty pointed out, let the boys kiss their homies and protect them. Don't just leave them out to dry and to fend for themselves against fans. Actually back them up. Change the toxicity of fan culture. Don't just talk about it. To play into this toxic mindset while then occasionally making a show that points out that it's toxic is hypocritical. And they know that, but they don't care because it'll keep making them money. The OG pillars of GMMTV BL shows were Chris Singto, Tae Nu, and Afghan. And those 3 were the really big pillar shows and couples that kickstarted GMMTV in particular's swing into BL and into branded pairs in general as a concept. And I didn't go into that a lot in this video because I covered it pretty decently in my old BL video from a couple of years ago. But Tae and Nu stopped making shows together for a while because people kept shipping them, and it was weird for them as people who love each other a lot as friends and who still hung out once they stopped being a branded pair, but who felt pigeonholed and felt uncomfortable with the way fans treated them. And similarly with Afghan have announced that they're going to stop working together like 3 separate times, and then they keep coming back to work with each other because they genuinely love working with each other. But people will constantly ship them, and it made them uncomfortable for a long time, as it should. Christian Singto, I will bring up later. There was a clip that went somewhat viral on Thai BL Twitter a while ago. Gun kissed somebody who wasn't off.
ไม่เห็นนึกว่าถามถึงเลนก็เลยแทนให้ก็ถามถึงเลนก็เลยแทนให้
And people made a whole big stink about it. It was a whole thing about like, oh my god, I can't believe he would do that to Off. This is horrible. How dare he? And Tae had to basically come out with a statement and be like, hey, you don't know anything about our friendship behind the scenes. And actually, we all kiss each other all the time. In Thai, the word for like kiss, like a peck, like a mwah type of kiss is a jupe. That's what the word they use. He was like, yeah, we jupe each other all the time. And why is that weird? In fact, like I said in my point about it being a pro earlier, I think that normalizing that kind of platonic contact between men is awesome, regardless of their sexuality. I think more men should be giving each other platonic little jupes. I think that's fantastic. But the fact that there was even backlash to that to begin with is part of what causes this huge problem, and the companies aren't helping. They are leaving these people out to fucking dry, and it sucks. And the thing is, you can tell that with some of these people actually being really close friends with each other, that they enjoy playing things up. They enjoy doing the teasing, are we or are we not dating stuff, and hanging off each other. And again, as I mentioned in my pros section, I think this is only a positive. Like the way that Jimmy C are with each other is really endearing to me, for example. But I think if we keep putting pressure on them to only behave this way with their branded pair and not just normalize it around with everyone like they all clearly want to do, then we're in danger of removing joy from the pairings. You're taking away the fun that they have in playing things up and actually making it only like a job, which surely isn't what you want if you're a fan of them as people, right?
แดดมันแยงตาแต่แค่เธอยิ้มมามันแยงใจพิษเนี่ยเรียกว่าซันแต่คนสำคัญเรียกว่าเธอ
This is an addendum to the addendum, because if you think I'm exaggerating about how delusional some of these fans are and about how this is encouraged by the culture around branded pairs, when I was trying to look up Tae's response to that kiss, I came up with new drama from last year, also involving Tae being too friendly with his co-stars and friends. Popular Thai actor Tae Tawan has made headlines for his strong public clapback against a persistent online harasser. Known for his work alongside his official initial pairing Nuthidipum in hit series like Dark Blue Kiss and Cherry Magic Thailand, Tae is usually active online. The recent drama started after Tae posted a birthday video for his friend, actor Junior Panachai. Junior is known to be paired with another actor, Mark Durantanin. This friendly interaction, however, triggered a series of hateful comments aimed at Tae. An anonymous account called out Tae, accusing him of pursuing an inappropriate relationship with Junior and even labeling him a homewrecker. Tae initially responded by blocking the account, but the harasser created a new account and continued the attack. This time, the comments were extremely hurtful, even mentioning Tae's deceased grandmother. This personal attack led Tae to respond directly for a second time, refusing to stay silent. He stated clearly that he was loved despite the harassment, and he openly called the anonymous accuser social garbage. This direct and aggressive defense of his character was instantly praised by his fans. Supporters were glad to see the popular actor stand up for himself against hateful online abuse, rather than quietly enduring the harassment. And I'm really, really glad that the actors are starting to stand up for themselves against this kind of hateful rhetoric, but why aren't there boundaries in place to stop fans from behaving this way? Why aren't the company stepping in? And it's not just GMMTV. GMMTV is just the easy target because they are the sort of the biggest arbiter of this, but even couples like Dow Offroad, who are also extremely popular, wonderful actors, really great friends. Again, we know nothing about their personal life and it's nobody's business. They have been getting a lot of hate recently for various things. And Dow ended up going off on somebody who was spreading stuff about their relationship, posting misleading pictures, and both Dow and Offroad had to speak out against it, basically being like, you don't know us, you don't know our lives, stop making things up just to suit your own narrative. And it sucks that that is something that continually keeps happening. It sucks that Kang Namping talked recently about people hiding behind their BL-friendly profile pictures and accounts to spread hateful rhetoric. Earth Kuhart, who is a extremely influential BL actor, who is also one of the first BL actors to openly come out as queer, who is a openly queer actor, posted something really lovely and innocuous on Twitter. Just nice pictures of himself having a good day. And somebody with a Pond for Win profile picture and name replied to that with, "Why is this ugly ass popping on my timeline?" I didn't actually say the F slur, guys. And as Beck pointed out, this is what Kang Namping were talking about when you use artists as your username or profile picture to spread hate. They got flack for saying that. But this comes back on the fandom and the artist, because this homophobic waste of space is using Pond for Win by proxy to harass Kuhart. And Pond for Win absolutely would not be okay with that. If you're sitting there using their faces and their names while you spout this homophobic, hateful rhetoric, you are not a real fan of theirs either. And I can say that with my whole chest. This kind of behavior is getting worse. And obviously, it's not just with the queer fandoms, it's not just with the Thai BL fandom, it's happening in a bunch of fandoms. Last week, as of the time of recording this, a bunch of fans of The Pit decide to descend on, in particular, Noah's Instagram because they announced that Supriya wasn't going to be returning for the next season, even though we haven't seen the conclusion of her arc this season yet, so we don't know if that makes sense at all within the bounds of her character. They just decided, oh, well, Noah's a racist, actually, and how fucking dare he, and decided to take that on him by going into his Instagram comments and posting underneath a post of him praising a deceased friend of his. Hey guys, not okay. And I don't think that Supriya would be particularly happy with you representing her name by doing that. In the same way that HUDCon would not be okay with you representing them by going and spreading hateful rhetoric. It is ridiculous and it is not okay that you can hide behind, well, I'm a fan of this person, so therefore I'm allowed to shout at this other person. No, actually. That's not how anything works, but it's especially not how being a decent human being works. And I'm really fucking tired of the fact that I have now got like 9 videos in this fandomification of Real People Has Gone Too Far series, and it's not only not letting up, it's actively getting worse. The language used both in describing these people online and in directly attempting to communicate with them is unacceptable. Atting them just to insult them, retweeting every negative tweet you can, constantly getting into their comment sections on various social media platforms just to accost them and make them feel bad. It's all absolutely abhorrent. And if you participate in that, you are absolutely abhorrent. If you are one of these people, touch grass. Not in the quirky internet way, in real life. Go and touch grass. Communicate with real people about real things outside of the internet. Delete Twitter from your phone. It is unacceptable behavior, and you should have learned better in kindergarten. So smarten the fuck up. I'm not saying that you can't privately ship real people. I've said it before, and I'll say it again, that I have personal opinions about which K-pop people are dating each other and which co-stars might be secretly hooking up, but I cannot stress this enough. I'm not tweeting about it. I'm not making hour-long YouTube exposés about it where I analyze their body language to pseudoscience my way into convincing people it's true. And I think people who do that need to find hobbies. I have complicated feelings about RPF, and I don't read it personally, but as long as you're not sending it to the celebrities in question, I can draw a line in the sand about it. I'm not even saying I'm that different to people who get overly invested in this way. I have a playlist called Thai BL Stars Being Chaotic Gays, which is entirely comprised of shipping videos I've found for pairings that I like, and then like one or two of Tae Tawan just being his adorable, goofy self. Not because I ship them, but because I just genuinely adore seeing people get on like that. I have a similar one for K-pop groups, except it's panic gays instead of chaotic. I love that kind of stuff, whether it's platonic or romantic or anything in between, because I just love seeing people delight in each other's company and have such easy intimacy with each other. I am once again bringing up my kissing the homies agenda. I am feeding into the shipping ecosystem by providing these videos with my views, but I am also only participating in the healthier end of the spectrum. The moment a video I click on for fun starts speculating about their locations or body language or justifying the creator's obsessive behavior, I'm out. I have no interest in feeding that end of things, and I don't think any of you should either. If you must speculate among friends, do that. Don't post about it on social media and promote or spread it, especially when the fandom you're doing it in is already rife with controversy and is clearly making the actors' lives harder. Hey, don't you claim to like those actors? Isn't that why you're in a fandom for them? Perhaps try to consider their feelings first before you behave in a way that distresses them or makes them uncomfortable. Don't confuse them playing along to ease a rabid fan base for them actively indulging your delusions. And this is massively influenced by the companies. Don't get me wrong, I'm not putting the blame entirely on the fans. It's not as bad as it used to be. It used to be written into contracts that you couldn't date, and that you had to basically fully pretend to be dating your co-star for the entire run of promotion and beyond. But it's still not great. It's still feeding these real human beings into scenarios where people are allowed to treat them like dolls for their amusement. And even if it's not directly written into their contracts anymore, it's incentivized to do it anyway, right? If you do date somebody who isn't your branded pair, your fans will turn on you. And the new person with the fire of 1,000 suns. See? Connor and Francois. So it's honestly easier to try and avoid it altogether, at least publicly. And the more you and your branded pair act like a couple, the more your fan base invests and the more brand deals you get, and your stock continues to go up. It's hard to avoid that that's the reality of the situation. Now, look, I'm not advocating for destroying the institution of branded pairs altogether. And in fact, I've gone on the record multiple times that we should implement something similar over here, because there are plenty of actors with fantastic chemistry who do one project with each other and never again. Michael Sheen and David Tennant should keep working together until the end of time. But I do think it needs a serious overhaul.
I gotta get my head in the game.
I think branded pairs should model themselves as a concept after Krist Singto, arguably the very first BL branded pair. They started on Sotus together a literal decade ago. Feel old yet? And they filmed a second season in 2017, did a special episode in 2018, and even did a show called I'm Team Me Too in 2020, where their characters weren't dating, but they were close, platonically. And then they stopped working together for years. Krist, which in Thailand I'm pretty sure is pronounced much more similar to Kit, but I'm going to keep it to the how it's spelled for now just to not confuse people, is a pretty big actor in Thailand and went back to filming heterodramas once he and Singto consciously uncoupled. But he returned to BL in 2023 with Be My Favorite, alongside another GMMTV alum that has had numerous great pairings before he got locked into a brand last year, Gawin Kasky. This show put an end to the overblown rumour that Krist was a homophobe, which is dumb, but something so persistent that I heard it upon arriving into the QL fandom in 2020 and actually addressed in my BL video.
It's why people reacted so badly when Chris made comments about his own sexuality that, somewhat subjectively, implied that fans asking him if he was gay was offensive to him. Now, I'm not going to pretend that I know what's going on in his head, and he absolutely shouldn't have scoffed at the idea like that, especially when he's, acting in a gay show. But come on, guys. He was probably bombarded daily with people shipping him with his friend, accusing him of lying for clout, and blowing every tiny thing he did out of proportion. I'm not saying that he's ally of the year, but I am saying that calling him outright homophobic for that feels like a little bit of a stretch to me. You can not like Christ, and he did take a break from BL after this, but the level of vitriol that comes up whenever his name is mentioned is fucking scary sometimes. I understand why. The connection BL promotion breeds between the stars and the fans is incredibly parasocial. Not to mention queer audiences haven't really had as much opportunity as straight audiences over decades of entertainment to get a little bit more normal about those things, so our parasocial attachments tend to be a lot more intense because they used to be so rare for us. It's why people glommed onto the Supernatural cast, even though ostensibly 2/3 of that cast weren't very receptive to the queer stuff. So comments like that probably felt like a direct betrayal to the fans who felt he owed his whole career to them.
But pretty much all of which was misconstrued, out of context statements weaponized by so-called fans who needed to pin the blame on somebody for breaking up their load-bearing branded pair. Singto bounced around different pairings within GMMTV for a couple of years, and actually left the company for a while there to go freelance, during which he worked with a number of other partners on different shows, none of which became branded. And then in 2024, he returned to GMMTV. And not only that, but he returned to his original pairing. The announcement that Chris and Singto would once again be working on a show together, and not only that, but one seemingly based on an RPF fanfic about them, broke the QL internet. People were feral about it. Understandably, dude, that's fucking bonkers. A script that was not only written for them, but about them, based vaguely on their lives, and then inspired by that to create the concept of two exes who have to stop working together for a while, and then come back together on a project, and then fall in love. As if the fan behavior wasn't already bad enough. This isn't actually an RPF. This is not actually a real person fanfic. But it very much reads like one and takes inspiration from the concept of real person fanfic. It's just more okay in this instance because the people that wrote it actually know Kristen Singto personally, and they looped them in on it and obviously talked to them about it. The entire time they had spent apart, there had been rumours swirling. The aforementioned Chris is homophobic nonsense. The idea that the two of them fell out in some way. That Singto got a boyfriend and that's why he had to leave. None of which were in any way corroborated by reality. And then, when Singto came back, he was extremely clear about why they broke up in the first place. If they were ever going to be known as singular entities, whole human people, actors in their own right, they had to break away from their branded pair. They didn't want their names and careers to be tied together forever. And they only decided to come back together once they had spent a decent amount of time fully establishing their own separate careers. This is actually the perfect system, and I think a lot more of the branded pairs should be treated this way. First, of First Cow fame, was similar to Gawin for years at GMMTV, in that he can have chemistry with a brick wall, and he was bounced around from partner to partner before he ever became a branded pair, including one with Gawin, by the way, which was fantastic.
นี่แหละพี่จะได้ไม่ลืมคำสัญญาของเรา
It's partially because of these people's pre-established careers that people lock in so hard once they found their branded pairs. This idea that like, oh, they just couldn't find one, it was like a search to find the right one, and now they've got what they need. And I don't think it's too far outside the realm of possibility to let them take breaks from each other in order to re-establish that independence. Not only that, but it's a good marketing move from a business standpoint as well. Absence makes the heart grow fonder. And giving audiences a break from a pairing for a year or two, while they still get to see their precious cinnamon rolls, Too Good, Too Pure, in other projects, before bringing them back together for the right show, would be like printing money. I love Jungdunk. Have I mentioned I love Jungdunk? But I'm not actually that excited about their upcoming show. I'll watch it because they're in it, but it's not my thing. Really. Same goes for First Cow's current output. All 4 of these actors should be able to dip their toes into separate projects that I would probably also want to check out because, again, I love them all separately and together.
สวัสดีครับดังณัฐชัยนะครับตัวเล็กแต่อุ้มง่ายนะครับจุงอาเชนฮะตัวใหญ่อุ้มยากแต่ขี่ได้นะครับไอ้ที่กูก็บอกว่าเอ๊ะในหัวสมองกูมันแล่นว่าเขาตังน่ารักจัง
Oh my god bro ไม่ใช่พี่
Somebody free Jung from the cage of stoic leads. Like, don't get me wrong, I love his stoic leads, and he's really good at it, which is why they keep giving them to him. And his role in Day You to Death is the most extroverted they've ever let him be at GMMTV. But I remember him from Two Moods too. I was there when the ancient texts were written.
อันแน่คิดถึงผมเหรอเปล่า
Just because he's good at stoic doesn't mean he should be pigeonholed. Let him play a villain in something, or a shitty ex-boyfriend, or a lovable best friend character. If you let him stretch his acting muscles a bit on other projects, and then bring him back with Dunk for the right show, it would be fantastic. Plus, giving your actors the breathing room to try out chemistry with other actors might also yield good fruit. Like I said, a lot of these guys were briefly partnered up with other people, and a lot of them were also good. Restricting the number of people an actor is allowed to kiss or have any serious emotional depth with on screen to 1 is probably not the best way to utilize them. Let's be real. Winnie Satang just ended their pairing, despite a show they'd been previously attached to, supposedly coming out later this year. Hopefully they'll just recast it instead of scrapping it, because I really want to fucking see it. Put these guys in there. I'm begging!
ยังไงเรื่องกับเมื่อวานแม่งต้องมีทางเกิดขึ้นอีกแล้วเว้ย
And for the most part, it seems really amicable. Of course, we don't know what goes on behind closed doors, but if it is as amicable as it looks, if these two are still friends, then we owe it to them to let them branch out from each other, and maybe in a few years they'll come back together when they're actually inspired to. Also, if you want the branded pairs to have longevity, which I assume you do, considering they're a money printing factory, you should let your actors take breaks from working with each other so they don't get complacent, or worse, sick of each other. Don't get me wrong, it's nice to have one coworker that you love going to work with every day, but if that one coworker becomes the only coworker you ever work with, it might get old.
God, what can we do for 4 minutes, Kiss? We can do anything.
The possibilities are endless.
I have complicated feelings about branded pairs because on the one hand, it's brought me some of my favorite shows ever. Would Jung Dunk and First Cow have made the Heart Killers together if they weren't branded pairs who've been working together for years by that point? Probably not.
ที่กูจีบพี่นี่เหรอยกรถพ่อมึงให้กูเดี๋ยวก็ตั้งแต่ผมเจอคุณอะตามจีบคุณอยู่คนเดียวเนี่ยคิดยังเข้าใจยังไงผสมมากูชอบมึงอะ first sight ไง
Would Yinwar have made Jack and Joker if they hadn't signed their souls to each other back in 2020? God, I love them so much. Can't wait for their new show, by the way.
หน้าที่เหี้ยอะไรของมึงอะทำลายชีวิตชาวบ้านอะหน้าที่มึงอะมึงคิดว่ากูรู้สึกดีเหรอนี่สิ่งที่กูต้องทำ
Would we have gotten head-to-head if Seekeen hadn't been paired from Only Boo?
เสือ2 ตัวอยู่ถ้ำเดียวกันไม่ได้เว้ยเฮ้ยหน้ายังกับแมวเพิ่งเกิดเสือกบอกตัวเองเสือเมียวเมียวเมียวเมียวเมียวเมียวเมียว
Would we have seen the great performances Earthmix have done in Moonlight Chicken or Only Friends Dream On if they weren't contracted to work together?
ไม่ทำให้มันยุ่งยากดิเรื่องคืนนี้ก็ขอให้มันจบคืนนี้นะไม่รู้เหมือนกัน
I mean, yes, we could have avoided Austin's Love Thailand, but at what cost? Xenunu and Mossbang keep making terrible shows, but I love watching them together.
ให้เราระวังตัวในการใกล้ชิดกันมากขึ้นพี่ค่ะก็จะใกล้แบบนี้ใครจะทำไมพี่ซันครับ
and one day they might actually sign on to a project that's well written, and I will be there to watch it. And on the other hand, it only seems to exacerbate an already volatile fan environment and cause undue stress to the actors in a lot of ways. As I was editing the video, Jimmy Ohm, who are a pairing from The Next Prince, broke their pairing up, and people have been very upset about this, especially on the back of a lot of other pairings breaking up. But it's not something that was super out of the blue, because Jimmy has had a really tough time dealing with fame in general, but he's also had some health problems. He's had some mental health problems over the years. He got his first big brush with fame back in YRU in like 2019. That's when I found him. And he had taken space after that as well. It seems like from what he said in his statement that he's probably going to step away from showbiz altogether, and that him and Ohm want to keep their relationship to themselves, and whether that's a friendship or a romantic relationship or whatever the fuck else it is, that again, cannot stress enough, is none of our fucking business. The pressure of having to maintain that in front of people is something that I don't think we give enough credit to these people for. It is really, really hard to maintain your relationship in public and in private, and to be able to differentiate those things in a way that doesn't negatively affect your mental health. So yeah, I am a bit bummed that I'm not going to be able to see Jimmy Ohm in something as a pairing again in the future, but if it is best for Jimmy that he steps away, I could not endorse a decision more. The same as Tool deciding to step away from acting entirely and go into architecture, who is now engaged and or married already, I'm not sure, to Mew, who was one of the other massive OG BL stars who used to have to pretend to be in a pairing with Golf, who was his pairing in Tharn Type. Like, these two men both came from extremely pushed pairs in the OG formation of what branded pairs were in the BL industry. They both experienced severe backlash from things that happened in and around their ships and pairings, whether it was because they were pretending too much or not enough, or whether the lines got blurred. And then they found each other, and now they're together and they're happy, and I think that's fucking awesome. But it speaks to the level of distrust that people have within the industry now, that when they did start announcing that they were dating, when they were soft launching themselves on Instagram, people didn't believe that they were. They thought that they were soft launching themselves for a branded couple to announce they were going to be a show together. It took me 6 months to realize that, nope, this is a legit relationship and these people are together and they're very happy, good for them. Because that is how the industry has conditioned us all to behave, which is not good. Cannot stress enough. That is not good. Your immediate assumption upon somebody talking about a happy relationship that they're in should not be, oh, I bet this is for publicity. That's bad. That is ontologically bad. I like branded pairs, but only as much as they serve the actors and the audience. There are so many cons that it's hard to justify liking them as they exist now, but I do hope that they'll continue to evolve the way they have over the last few years into something more balanced and healthy for everyone involved. What do you think about branded pairs? Do you hate them? Do you love them? Do you hate them on principle but love seeing your particular favourites on screen together? I'm kind of in that category. Do you think I missed anything? Let me know in the comments. I definitely didn't cover a lot of like the early branded pair stuff in terms of Mew Golf and Max Tool, because A, that's not really how branded pairs are structured anymore, because that was years ago, and B, I kind of want to leave both Mew and Tool alone. Like, they're dating each other now, and they seem to be pretty happy, and I just want, like, Tool's out of the industry, let's just let them chill, you know? Let's let sleeping dogs lie. But if you do think I should have talked about that, I should have given more emphasis to how bad branded pairings were in the beginning, how much worse they were, how much more intense the pretending to be a couple stuff was. Like, yeah, I get that. I do get that. Because it was much, much worse. But I do think there are still massive improvements to be made. I think there's a lot more we can do to make it more tenable for these actors and for us as an audience. If you think I missed anything, let me know in the comments. And if you liked this video, give it a like, check out one of the other similar topics I've covered on the channel, and subscribe if you fancy it, if you're nasty. Anyway, I'm off to go and kiss the homies. And yo!
คือว่าคนเราอ่ะมันต้องไม่มีการเตรียมคือเตรียมอ่ะ is for losers โอ้มันต้องแบบเล่นทีเผลอเหมือนที่ผมเซอร์ไพรส์คุณในวันเกิดเนี่ยแหละครับโอ้ยมันต้องนี้Well, thank you all for hanging in there throughout this one. This one was very much
a personal one for me. A lot of my channel the last couple of years has sort of not avoided the BL and QL stuff, but I've just been focusing a lot more on like really long, intense video essays, which I do love doing, but they get very, very heavy. And sometimes it is just nice to go back to my roots and talk about the queer media that I watch and engage with and media analysis. And I think that's more of what I'm going to try and focus on this year in between doing the big, heavy video essays. So if you're interested in leftist video essays and you're interested in queer media and just media analysis in general, you should definitely subscribe to my channel because that is pretty much my entire wheelhouse. I would like to thank my wonderful patrons for helping me to facilitate the dreams of making a channel that is so eclectic and weird. Thank you to Ian Musa and Candy99, two of my biggest supporters since day one, just absolute angels. And a special thank you to my wonderful rooftop dwellers, Cast, Dana Brand, Nick Hook, BPs, Ace of Lights, Cal Kale, Best Stressed, Sunshine Che, Deborah Laban, Sarah Parker Schemmelt, Ghost Porcupine, Callum McLeod of Clan McLeod, Whoop Whoops, Lilac Rose, CS, Rihanna, Carolina, Chris K, E. Teddy, Renelia Delgrange, Jellywa, Sunayama, Tiny Wooden Tree, Tan, K-Guard, Rem Sleep, Kirstan, Ellie Walker, Stara Heron, and E-Star, who, as a category, are actually named after my obsession with BLs, because Bad Buddy's first kiss was on a rooftop, and then we noticed a pattern of a lot of big pivotal moments in BLs, specifically kisses, but other things too, happening on rooftops, and I'm still on the rooftop was a common phrase for a long time, and I still use it when I'm talking about being obsessed with things that people have moved past, so that is actually where that category comes from. And of course, there are my wonderful introverts who are also flying past. Truly, without them, I would not be able to do this, so it is really amazing the fact that I get to do any of this at all. Like, it's unreal. The fact that I could talk about BL stuff that some people don't even know about and they'll still watch is like genuinely amazing to me. If you're one of those people who watches my videos, even if you're not invested in the thing that they're about, truly, you mean everything to me, because I too love watching a video where somebody talks about something that I am not invested in for an hour at a time. So you are my people. And to my wonderful enthusiasts as well. Thank you to all of you for just generally being super sick and helping me to keep this eclectic channel going. My next video will be comparing two sort of 2010s rom-coms and the ways they failed in similar ways and the ways they succeeded in slightly different ways. And then after that, I've got a couple of other fun ones in my back pocket, as well as some of the more heavy leftist video essay content. So if that's what you're looking for, stick around. 안녕.